Welcome back to the Real News Network. I'm Paul Jay. We're continuing our series of interviews with Hiener Flassbeck on the situation in Greece, and he now joins us from his home in Germany. Hiener is the former head of UNCTAD and also the co-author of the new book with Kostas Lapavitsas, and the name of the book is Against the Troika, Crisis and Austerity in the Eurozone. Thanks for joining us again, Hiener.
Thanks for having me again.
So in the first part, we talked about this idea of creating a coalition of Greece, perhaps with Spain and France, as a way to try to take on Germany's policy of storing up lots of capital, loaning it to the world, and wanting to make an example out of Greece. The French foreign finance minister, Zapin, he's made it pretty clear that France isn't going to play ball, at least according to him. He says there's not going to be any more haircuts. There's not going to be any more reduction of debt. If this coalition isn't possible with Italy, France, particularly, maybe, Spain, maybe if there's a change of government. But if the coalition isn't possible and Germany sticks to its guns and the Troika sticks to its guns, as it seems to be saying it will, well, what other choices does Syriza have?
Well, then it's going to be really hardball. Then the question comes how long the government can survive. Either there are only two possibilities then. Either they're following the conditionality, all the conditions that the Troika puts upon them. So then they are really betraying their electorate because they said, we're going to stop this, exactly this. This was the big promise in the whole of the election campaign. Before the election campaign, they said, never again with the Troika, never again with the Memorandum of Understanding, and so on. So if they do this, then they are gone in Greece. And then the question is who will be next or what will happen politically. That's an open question I do not try to answer. But the other choice is then to say, do we have options to go out? This is the natural thing then.
To leave the Eurozone.
To leave the Eurozone and to exit the Euro. This is a very, very difficult, extremely difficult question, but it cannot be left aside. It has to be mentioned. You have to talk about it. And you have, as a government, as a responsible government, you have to prepare for that. We have seen, and let me give the example of Cyprus. In Cyprus, we have seen that the government resisted to the conditionality and many very crazy, absolutely crazy conditions that were put upon them by the Troika to the very last moment. And
what are examples of some of those conditions?
Well, the condition was to close down the biggest bank and to stop the whole, so to say, the business model of the island, to stop it because they were not allowed to take on any further loans from other countries. And as I said, the most important bank had to be closed down, and there was a haircut on the people, the depositors in the Cyprus banks, which was a disaster for many people and outside and inside of Cyprus. So it was really drastic. But in the very last moment, there was call it blackmail or however you call it, but it was very clear that they would not get what is called emergency liquidity assistance by the European Central Bank if they would not agree to the conditionality. And not to get this emergency liquidity would mean that the banks are bankrupt. So the banks are really bankrupt and not only one, but more or less all of the banks, or most of the banks, were bankrupt the next day. So this is a very strong weapon that the Troika has. And I'm not quite sure whether the ECB will again be ready to play this kind of blackmailing. But nevertheless, there are other strong instruments that the Troika has. If you need money to keep your society going, if you keep the government going, well, what are you going to do if you don't get the money? If you only get the money from the Troika?
My understanding is right now the Greek banks have asked for some emergency funding because people are so freaked out with what's happening. There's been a big run on people taking their banking savings out of the banks. They need some currency.
The thing that happens. The deposits run down by people exporting their savings, so to say, and then the banks are in trouble. Then they need emergency liquidity to keep running day by day the business because otherwise they're bankrupt from one day to the other.
And so if the European Central Bank says, yeah, you can have it, but
Yeah, yeah.
you
But
agree with the terms that we gave you in the first place, then what?
yeah. And so far, the European Central Bank, a normal national central bank would clearly do that. But the European Central Bank is a different beast. And in the case of Cyprus, it was part of the blackmailing of the country. So to avoid this, then the question comes, so what are you going to do?
So what if it does come down to either the new Syriza government has to either completely give in or leave, then what does leaving look like? I mean, it's got to be a very dangerous proposition, but what does it look like?
Well, the first thing you have to do, you have to close all accounts in the next second, so to say. You say we are going for the option to get out, and nobody can access accounts anymore because people will take all the money off, and then the system is anyway bankrupt. So this doesn't go. You have to stop capital from flowing out. This was done in Cyprus already, so there is an example in Europe. It worked quite well. So the capital controls worked quite well, and the people were not allowed to get their money out of the country anymore. This is the first step. Clearly, to avoid panic. I think it would be very important at the same time to really explain to the people what is going to happen and what the choices are. And if people understand that, then you could maybe reduce the level of panic. And the next thing would be but that has to be prepared a longer time before, to replace the euros by a national currency again. So you need physically national currencies. You need to exchange it. You exchange it on the bank accounts and wherever cash is needed. You have to change the ATMs and I don't know what, a lot of difficult things. So it takes time, but this time can be bridged by, say, you give out IOUs or something like that replaces money in the first round. And so this is the way out. And then you have the other difficulty, namely when the new currency is there, what is the exchange rate of the new currency to the euro? This is the critical question. Clearly, it will be a much depreciated value. So we will start with 1-to-1 first on the accounts. The national currency will replace the euro, but you cannot keep an exchange rate of 1-to-1. The value of the exchange rate will fall. And then comes, for me, the really critical question, namely, how much should it fall? It should not fall to infinity, because if it falls by 70-80%, then it would be disaster, and that is not necessary. So you need a mechanism to stop it at a certain point of time. And if their capital controls are sufficient is a very open question that I think nobody can very clearly answer. So what you have to do is you need, again, a form of assistance mechanism. And what I would be asking for, what Kostas and me, what we are asking for in the book is that the European Union, indeed the Union, not the monetary union, but the Union as such, gives this kind of assistance to countries that go out to help them to stabilize their currency at a reasonable level, which may be, say, 30% lower than before, but not 60 or 70% before. Because otherwise you have to call the IMF in, which is really disastrous, which is to get one devil out and another in, which is not reasonable. So you should have assistance from the European Union if it is needed. If your controls are not absolutely watertight, then you would need such assistance. Then working with the National Central Bank is a totally different thing. And then the government has room of maneuver again to establish a new kind of economic policy.
Very unknown territory, all of this.
Absolutely. This is absolutely unknown territory. It's, as far as I know, there is no recent experience of a country. There's definitely no recent experience of a country going out of a monetary union. It will be an absolutely chaotic process. That's no doubt about it. You need very bold politicians to do it. But as I said, the choice will come, and then it is not absolutely evident that you would reject it forever. It's clear that you wouldn't talk about it a long time before, But, at a certain point of time, maybe someone has to go public and give a speech about blood, sweat, and tears and tell the people, well, this is what the alternative that we have. Do you want to suffer again for another 5 years, or you want to a one stroke where we get out of it and have our fate in our own hands?
I mean, it's not that there isn't a lot of money in Greece. The Greek oligarchs have a lot of money. There's plenty of dough there. I mean, isn't part of the solution at some point there has to be some sort of extreme measures to get at some of the oligarchs' money?
Sure, but it will never be sufficient. I mean, absolutely clear you need a change in the tax system and you need a fairer taxation, but all these things do not go quickly. You cannot grasp this money. You cannot get it for the use of the government in a couple of years. That is almost impossible. There are too many ways to hide this capital, or the capital is already out of the country. So you have to negotiate again with other countries about tax matters, with Switzerland, for example, where people say several hundred billions of euros are kept by Greek people in Switzerland. I don't know, but it may be true. But then again, it's a question of negotiating with Switzerland.
Right. And just how threatening is this now to the Troika? They almost seem like they've accepted, well, if Greece goes, it's going to be more painful for Greece than for the Troika.
No, I don't think so. I think at the moment nobody really wants Greece out. What they want is just to Greece to play by the old rules, namely.
No, but I mean, if Greece won't play by the old rules.
Yeah, then, well, I think nobody has a plan B, a clear plan B. But the Eurozone also does have no idea how to handle this. Well, many people in Germany clearly would say, but it's mostly innocent, ignorant people who say, well, let the Greece go and we don't care. But that's not the point. The point is that, and I mentioned it many, many times, that the main problem is not about Greece. The main problem is about France and Italy. The quantitative important point is about France and Italy. They have the same problem as Greece in principle. They have lost competitiveness against Germany because of German wage dumping. So they have to decide sooner or later in the same way. And then comes the critical test. And then let's see what happens politically as well as economically. I mean, if you look at France, France has the presidential election in 2017. If up to then there is still recession or more unemployment than now, what are the people going to elect? That's a very open question.
In the next segment of our interview, we're going to talk about what all this means to the rest of the world, and particularly the U.S. and U.S. policy. Please join us for part 3 with Hiener Flassbeck on the Real News Network.